Welcome to Conversations with Ann Elizabeth, the podcast inspired by my book, I'm a Registered Dietitian, Now What?, where I have the absolute joy to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about nutrition with a variety of people who share their personal story of passion and purpose, especially registered dietitians. Today's conversation is with Christine Palumbo. She's a registered dietitian who has a passion for serving and helping others, especially other dietitians, to help them develop and advance their careers. Christine has an interesting start into the field and really has pioneered her way into outstanding opportunities in clinical dietetics, being an entrepreneur who is passionate about corporate wellness, speaking, volunteering for her district, state, and national dietetic academies, and being a mentor to future dietitians. She has done some amazing media work for our profession in television, print, and online, including being on a panel with the late Dr. Atkins and a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Please enjoy my conversation with Christine. Connected through my production company that introduced us, and he was a huge fan of meeting you and said, you've got to do a podcast with Christine. So I'm excited to have you, and I can't wait to learn about your career so far. I feel like it's never going to be over because you've had such a great time with your career and you're doing such great things. So maybe let's start. Let's go back to when you kind of started to get being a dietitian on your radar, or when did you make that decision to kind of hop into the dietetics field?
I had no intention of becoming a registered dietitian because I had never heard of the field, frankly. I intended to be a medical technologist like my aunt. And so I started out as a biology major and was going to major in med tech. And then about halfway into my sophomore year in college, I switched gears. And to be honest, the reason why was that there was a really, really tough course that we had to take the next semester, and I was scared to death. I didn't think I was going to survive it. And so I was shopping around, if you will, for a new major and new career path. And I just happened to meet a fellow dietetics major, or I think it was called Foods and Nutrition, where I went to college, and that was the College of St. Catherine in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's now called St. Catherine University. But I was in line for dinner, and I met this petite gal by the name of Debbie, and I asked her what her major was, and she said it was dietetics. And I said, what's that? And she told me a little bit about it, and I thought, that might be good for me. And there were three things that I recall that stuck out with our conversation, is that it was food-based, and that it was working with people, and that it was in the health and or medical field. And all three of those appealed to me. And so changed majors, was off to the races, and really have not looked back since. It's been really a perfect career for me. And I have a saying, I've been saying this for at least 5 years now, to my family, to my close friends, and anyone else who will listen, and that is that the world revolves around dietitians. And part of it is that probably because I'm such a connector of people, but also it has to do with, I just feel like dietitians, we have each other's backs, and we care for each other, and the relationships that we develop are genuine, and we we connect with each other. So
I love that. The world revolves around dietitians.
Oh yes. Okay. I hope the listeners think about that. I'm going to give you an example of the latest, and that is, or one of the latest things actually, because there's always more. There's always some, but actually a year ago, I was at a district meeting. So the district that I belong to in the Chicagoland area is the West Suburban Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And there was someone new in town who I had met, and she introduced me to someone who was a new professor, actually a visiting professor at Northern Illinois University. And the woman who I met is much younger than me. And so we met, and, that was that. And then I saw her again at the April meeting, April of 2019. And we discovered that her husband, who is a radiologist, had just left a job in Champaign, Illinois, and they were waiting for the new guy to come in September of this year, actually just last month. And the new guy is my new son-in-law.
Oh my gosh. No way.
And so I there's been a flurry of email and text exchanges between everybody. And so that is, the people who know me well know that this is just normal Christine operating behavior. I like to meet people. I like to ask them questions about themselves. I almost always find at least one point of commonality. And there are times when it's something that's dramatic, like what I just described. So, and people say to me, like, oh, how do you do that? Or, why is that? And it's like, I don't know. I just like to talk to people, and I'm not afraid. I'm just not afraid of finding out about people. And it's something that other members of my family, we do it that way. So it's kind of a Palumbo thing.
It sounds like you like to make those, you like to make sincere connections with individuals, whether it be finding commonalities or just creating that connection.
Both. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, Anne. Yes.
And, I think there's so much strength in that, because I think if you weren't a person that led the way on that, we wouldn't have this, the world revolves around dietitian concept.
Right.
Every time I have a conversation from here on out, that's going to be in the back of my head, because that's how we really should treat our profession. Having that mindset is so strong.
That's right.
I like it. Do you mind me asking what class you were scared of taking in medical terminology?
Yeah, medical technology. To be honest, what was it? I think it was called quantitative analysis. Does that sound right? I think it was it, in which I don't know. I think that's what it was. I still remember, coming to tell my mother, and she, was like, oh, okay.
She's like, all right. And then you went into dietetics. So then you're probably like, oh gosh, there's some of these classes aren't any easier.
Well, the interesting thing is that becoming a dietitian, instead of being a med tech working in a hospital laboratory, which is what I thought I was going to do, I never would have had the career achievements and the visibility and the career opportunities that I have had as a registered dietitian nutritionist and member of the academy. So it was a good switch.
It was a good switch. Well, working in a lab versus working with humans, there's a way different. I can imagine your personality. Your personality is probably way too small for a lab. So that's interesting. So have you always been, did you grow up in Minnesota?
No, I grew up in a close-in suburb of Chicago by the name of Riverside. And actually, Riverside is a very special community. It was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, the same, I believe, landscape architect. I forgot what his title was, but he also designed New York City Central Park. Oh. And so Riverside has a lot of winding streets, and it's very small. I decided to attend college in St. Paul, Minnesota. I wanted to get out of the state of Illinois for college. I just wanted to, break free a little bit. And so I attended college there, did my dietetic traineeship there, worked there for a couple of years. And during about 6 months after I finished my degree, I was set up on a blind date with someone by the name of Chuck, and we ultimately married and moved to the Chicago area. So he's from the Twin Cities, and people ask him why he moved from Minneapolis to Chicago, and he tells them tongue in cheek, that he moved here for the weather. And since you're from Iowa, and there's a long time Iowa Minnesota rivalry, quote unquote, and Chicago and the whole state of Iowa and the whole state of Minnesota, you can't say that there's easy winter weather in any of those three states.
Ever.
So so I've really been in the Chicago area for most of my life and most of my career.
And most of your career. So you kind of said you worked a little bit in Minnesota. What was your first interest in the dietetics field? Was there something that you felt a pull to or a tug to with what you liked?
I really enjoyed my clinical work in my traineeship. And that was, again, that medical area. I really loved learning about it. And I knew that management was not for me. Community was not going to be for me. I also loved teaching classes. So I started out at Mount Sinai in Minneapolis, which has been closed for a number of years, but I worked in cardiology and I also worked in diabetes. As a matter of fact, I helped to create a diabetes training center, if you will. And so I became very involved in the diabetes world and in cardiology. I enjoyed, back in the day, I really enjoyed teaching classes. And when I was 23 years old, I still remember telling my roommate at the time, again, I was 23, I told her that I was going to do television someday, even though I had never done television and had no imminent television opportunities. I knew that being a voice for the profession, but also a voice for good health, was going to be part of what I was going to do, and that came true. I always have enjoyed teaching classes, whether it's formal classes or what I've been doing now for a number of years, corporate wellness presentations, or speaking to community groups or speaking to healthcare audiences. I really enjoy that, and doing media, whether it's television, radio, interviews with print publications, and now more common than the others are interviews with online publications, publications such as, let me think now, like Well and Good, I believe I've been in, and readersdigest.com and sites like that. So after a while, when I got married, moved to Chicago, I got a job in cardiology at the University of Chicago Medical Center, and that was very challenging. We had a variety of, a couple different types of patients, and I worked in cardiology and also cardiac surgery. But we had professors, University of Chicago professors as patients. We had literally princes there, and then we had people from the neighborhood, and then some middle class people kind of in between. So it was a variety of people, and I definitely had to be on my toes,
Sure.
Working with people. And then I'd been working there for a few years, and then decided it was time to start my family. So when I had my first baby, I decided to stay home with her. Right after I found out I was pregnant with my oldest, I started classes to earn my master's degree in business administration. So when I was pregnant, I was in classes at DePaul University to earn my MBA, and decided to take time off from the paid career after I had had my daughter, primarily because I was busy with the MBA, but then also because my husband, who had just graduated from medical school, he was doing his internship. Actually, I think he was in his residency at that time, and then his fellowship. And he was never around. Let's just put it that way. He was never around, and I wanted some stability. I wanted to be there for my daughter. And so ultimately I had 3 children and stayed out of the paid workforce for 8 years. And then someone called me about a full-time position, and, I surmised very quickly that it was a wrong number, truly. Again, that's kind of like what happens to me, I guess, but then she asked me to work for her part-time. And so I did for a few years. But even though I was out of the paid workforce for 8 years, I have always been active with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, starting at the district level, but then quickly moved up to the state level, the DPG level, and then at the national level. So for those 8 years, I had a committee appointment, or I had an elected position. I'm going to tell you a funny story. Someone called me. This is a long time ago. This is October of 1986. And I was just walking in the door from my grandfather's funeral, and the phone was ringing. And so I picked up the phone. It was somebody with the Illinois Dietetic Association asking if I would be interested in having my name on the ballot for delegate. And at the time, the House of Delegates of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics was structured differently than it is now. There was no representation from practice group or, retired member under 30. It was all strictly by state. So Illinois had 5 delegates at the time, and there were 2 ballot positions on the ballot that was going to come out a few months later. And I found out later that they had 3 people on the ballot, and they literally just needed another name for that 4th position. And I had to ask her, I said, what's a delegate? I mean, what do I know? And I mean, I was more or less assured that I didn't have to worry about it, because there were 2 incumbents and a well-known third person, and I was a position filler. I mean, it was, explained to me in so many words. So I was at a meeting a few weeks later, or whenever the ballot was out, voting was taking place. I was coming back from a meeting. I was on the commuter train, and I saw somebody that I knew, and she congratulated me. And I said, for what? And she rolls her eyes, and she said, basically, I hadn't been informed that I was elected. So I was elected as a delegate. And at this point, so when I took over as the delegate-elect, I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, and I was young. I was young for being a delegate. I was 34, and oftentimes, especially back in the day, but even more so now, or even as much now, members of the House of Delegates are people who have risen up the ranks with their various states. They've been president. Oftentimes it's very common. And I had done public relations for the Illinois Dietetic Association, done that for a couple of years. So anyway, so that set me off on, being a delegate it's a state elected position, but you are meeting and working with people at the national level. So I became acquainted with and friends with people at the national level. And it was very educational, very exciting. And, I definitely contributed to the profession during those, I forget now if it was 2 terms or if it was 3 terms that I served. I think it was 2 terms. So, so I gradually went back doing some consulting. And it was nice because with the 3 kids, and again, my husband never being home, I was it in terms of the parents. And I live in a community where you can't really walk many places. You have to be driven. And so I was driving around, and this is, back in the day before there were mobile phones, or at least at the beginning. But I gradually, so after being a delegate, I served in other volunteer capacities, again, sometimes appointed, sometimes elected, got to know a lot of people. And when you get to know people, they refer job opportunities for you and interview opportunities. And so things just built gradually. And over the years, people have asked me, like, who's your agent? Or, how do you get all this work? And it's like, the old adage, I forget how it goes, but think, the importance of showing up. And that is one of the things that I've always done. I've shown up. And today, of course, showing up can be literal, being in the same room as someone, but showing up can also be via social media. But showing up, getting to know people, having them get to know me, and, looking back, I guess I've gravitated towards high visibility positions, but it's never been that my intention. One of the things that drives me, one of my passions, one of my, actually probably my primary passion in life and my purpose in life is to serve others. And again, looking back at the things that I've done, my motives have always been to chip in, to help out, to participate, to work with other people, and oh, by the way, I'm having fun while I'm doing it.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
You have to have fun. You have to enjoy the things that you do. Yes. And maybe you can speak a little bit too. I know that a lot of people get intimidated by volunteering for, your academies, your state, your district, and, maybe speak to maybe some of our younger dietitians that don't even know why that's important, where to start, should they do it? Should they make the time for it? What would you say?
I would say, and this is an old saying, but, that you get more out of it than you put in it. That's almost always the case. I started out, and sometimes it's a question of somebody personally asking you to join a committee or to run for office. Sometimes people are able to, virtually raise their hands and say, I'll do it. The very first time that I was on a committee, I was doing my traineeship, and someone that I knew slightly because I was casually dating her brother asked me, it's not the same guy, different guy. Yeah. The world revolves around dietitians. Remember that?
Yes, exactly.
So, she asked me to join the membership committee of a district. This is up in the Twin Cities, and I joined it and met some people and had fun. And then when I came to Chicago, I immediately joined the Chicago Dietetic Association and immediately volunteered for the Public Relations Committee. And that, that's how the beginning of my career. But, so I think what the advice that I would give to students and young dietitians is to look at your district or look at your state, state affiliate, or look at your DPG. And, look at the committees, look at the various members of the executive committees or the board of directors, and, what areas interest you? Is it legislative and legislation and public policy? Is it public relations? Is it social media? What is it that you would be interested in doing? So, because it's hard when you're doing something that you don't enjoy. It's hard if you're doing something that is really, challenging for you. But if you can find an area that you enjoy, it's a pleasure, and you'll meet people in the meantime. You'll develop communication skills, leadership skills. You'll get to know a lot of people, and especially, it's those people that you meet when you're young. Those are your lifelong career friends. yeah. So, and districts and, districts in particular are struggling in some cases. I was at our West Suburban District meeting a week ago, and I was told that of the 10 districts in Illinois, one of them, the Southern District, has had to close because they had a lack of volunteers.
Wow.
And that's where Southern Illinois University is located.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it is definitely worth your while. And young people. Well, in a way, our profession has shot itself in the foot a little bit in terms of leadership opportunities, because it used to be you had to attend meetings in person in order to get those CPEU certificates, get those hours. And now you don't have to anymore. You can get continuing education hours in a myriad of ways without leaving your desk, without leaving your home. And so in a way, people are missing out on those valuable opportunities for the leadership development and getting to know people.
Well, and like you said earlier, it's kind of been like the offshoot for all the opportunities you've had in your career too, like meeting these individuals that led to all the things that you've done. And so they're missing out on that as well.
That's right. That's very true.
So let's go back to, so you wanted to be on TV. Not many dietitians are like, I want to be on TV, or I will be on TV, because I think we're a little intimidated by that. So I love that you wanted to do that. And how did you get out there and learn what to do and, be ready for that type of media experience?
It was, I was 26. I was a new member and on the board of the Chicago Dietetic Association, and all at once there were, I believe, 3 media opportunities that came to me. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about a little while ago. It's not, it's who you know, but it's also who knows you. Mm-hmm. I must have made an impression. I don't know why, but I made an impression with someone because I got a few phone calls. Would you like to be on the radio? Yes. Would you like to do a television show? Would you like to do another television show? So I did 3 media interviews when I was 26 in downtown Chicago. I had no media training. Because there was no such thing really for dietitians. There was no spokesperson program yet. That didn't come about until I was about 29. And oh, by the way, I was nominated by the president of the Illinois Dietetic Association, and I did not get it. First of many, many, many things that I've applied for that haven't come to fruition. Oh well, I survived, but it's like, yeah. But no, I did this radio. It was a call-in show. It was downtown. I think my husband was working. My father drove me there and waited. Because anyway. So it was a 2-hour call-in show, and I think it was from 9 until 11. And my aunt called in, and she did not expect to get on the air. And so she was flustered and asked some question about sodium, and I did not even recognize her voice. And she was very flustered. And so I found out that afterwards. And then, so again, I did a couple of TV interviews, and one was at the Chicago Board of Trade. It was like a TV station that was in that building. And so on the top, and the topic is very timely. It's an evergreen topic. It was, healthy eating on a budget. So it was a passion of mine then. It's still a passion of mine. And so on the top of the screen was me talking. Somebody was interviewing me, and at the bottom of the screen were the hog futures and right. And so I got some ribbing about that from the few people who saw it. And then let's see, a few years later, when I was 29, the president, I believe, of the Chicago Dietetic Association called me and asked me if I would be willing to come to our public television station on the north side of Chicago to be on a panel discussion. One of the panelists was going to be a medical doctor, not anybody I knew at the time. The second person on the panel would be the late Dr. Robert Atkins of the Atkins Diet Revolution, and the third person would be me. And apparently they had trouble finding someone willing to go on television. And I said, okay,
Yep,
sure, I'll do it. So I guess, again, looking back, people have told me that I come across as being confident, and I think in some cases I'm somewhat fearless. Although I do have fears. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have plenty of fears and plenty of irrational fears. But I don't know. It's like, all right, So looking back too, my philosophy has been, okay, if somebody thinks that I can do something, if somebody thinks that I would be good at something, they must be right. And I should say yes. And so that has been, a philosophy that I followed. One time somebody called me and asked if I could analyze some recipes for, I think it was the Illinois Beef Council recipe contest. And at the time, I didn't have any nutrient analysis software. And at the time, you had to purchase discs. Remember those?
Yes.
So I ordered the discs, and they came in, and I learned how to do nutrition analysis and completed these for this recipe contest.
Wow.
And, so yeah, I mean, so.
You're kind of the person who's just open to try. You just are like, why not? Let's just try something new. It can't hurt.
Yeah. Okay. So
you like to say yes, which is good.
I guess so. Yeah, I like to say yes. I try to say yes. Although, I'm definitely a fan of saying no. There are times when you should say no, when you're overwhelmed, when you're stressed, when you get that quote gut feeling, when you physically get that punch to the gut and you don't think you should be doing something. That's when you should listen. You should listen to that gut. You should listen to the little voice. Actually, I'm going to tell you another example. I was thinking about this earlier today. Someone, I can't remember where this guy found me, but some guy who was the editor of a nutrition book for the nursing profession. And this was maybe, 5, 6, 7 years ago. He wanted me to be the editor of a college textbook, again, for nurses. And sounded intriguing to me. Sounded like, oh yeah, I'll try that. Sounds like something interesting. And we met in person. We talked on the phone. He warned me it was going to be a lot of work. It's going to take a long time. I would earn some money. I would not get rich off of it. I thought, all right, let's go with this. So then I was at the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo, FAND, and I remember separately telling two people about this. And one of them was somebody who did not know me very well. And another person knew me maybe a little bit better. But I told them about it, again, separately. And each one of them looked at me quizzically and asked, why? Like this is not you, Christine. This is, I can't see you doing it. And when the second person said it, I realized that was the truth and that I would be miserable and that I should probably say no. I should probably decline it. And I did. I mean, as soon as I made the decision, I had this huge weight off of my shoulders. I had such a sense of relief, and the man was very understanding, very kind, and, they must have found somebody else, but, I was very grateful to, to these two people who knew me well enough and were not afraid to give me their honest input. And I don't think I was even asking for it. I was just telling them, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing this. And they both said, no. So thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of a good idea too. I never thought of that before, but like if you are thinking about trying something new or a different endeavor, maybe just running it by some colleagues or maybe running it by some friends who know you to see if you're kind of teetering, then maybe you can kind of figure out a little bit more indefinitely what you think is the best decision.
Absolutely. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in ourselves and in, our own world, and having some trusted colleagues on a one-time basis, perhaps create or join a casual mastermind group, but having almost like a board of directors that you can go to and ask. And these could be, and I'm a big fan of knowing and talking with and working with a variety of generations. I'm a baby boomer. I learned so much, the reverse mentoring. I learned so much from Gen Xers and and millennials. I learned so much from them. And so it's nice to mentor younger dietitians, but I also learned so much from them. And so it's nice to have all the the various generations in the workforce.
I would agree with you. I do. I always learn things from people that are older and wiser than me, and then people that are young too. It's amazing how many aha moments you get during those conversations.
Yes.
So when you think about your career, what has been, you've done you speak, you do a lot of media, and you do obviously tons of presentations. Is there one thing that kind of lights your fire more than the others, or has it all been a really good combination and good mix of things that you enjoy?
I love a variety. I love mixing things up. And so what has always driven me, what I thrive on is having a quote, well-balanced diet of different types of projects, short-term, long-term, in between. Although it makes you crazy at times, not crazy, but you feel like you're losing your mind at times when you have to switch from task to task. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to make sure that each of your clients knows or thinks that they are the most important client of yours. You have to do that. So I really enjoy doing different things and new challenges. I love a new challenge. If I had to pick one type of project or area of work that is my number one, it's speaking to corporate audiences. I love going to the workplace and speaking about nutrition, wellness, various types of wellness topics to educated people who know a lot, and in some cases they think that they know a lot more than they actually do, and to have and talk to them about things, teach them things that they didn't know before. Because I read constantly, I listen to all sorts of media. I like to, I like to watch the news at night. I learn a lot, plus then there's all of our health and nutrition journals and, various newsletters and online publications. I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly learning, and I love telling people things that makes their mouths, their jaws drop, and where they're like, really, And of course, if I could think of something right now, but I can't think of anything right now. But this happens, and I like doing that. So when I talk with the HR people or whoever is my contact person at a company or a group, I tell them that, I'm not up there as a talking head. It's more of an edutainment type of thing. And, I like to do hands-on things if I can, certainly know my way around a PowerPoint slide deck. But I also like to bring in actual foods or food labels or encourage people to bring things in and have them ask questions. There's nothing more interesting than having some real world experiences. So I really enjoy speaking to groups. And something else that I enjoy doing that is on the volunteer side, I like mentoring young people. A number of years ago, I was a member of the academies membership, I forget what the title was, and it's got a new name now, but basically the membership committee. And we were told each at the national level, when you're on a committee, it's generally, but not always, but generally a 3-year appointment. And so at the beginning of my first year, we were told that this new e-mentoring program was being established and that we were all expected to join. So I did, I created my profile and, filled out all the boxes and started mentoring young people. And so some of these people have been, now so far they've all been women. I would love to mentor some young men, but it hasn't happened yet. So I've talked with students, and they have to be members of the academy. And if somebody reaches out to me, oftentimes this happens, somebody will find me online and, maybe they're an undergraduate, college student, and I'll say, they want me to mentor them. And I'll say, well, are you a member of the academy? And if they say no, I will say, well, I will mentor you, but it's only through the Academy's e-mentoring program, which means you have to join. So I'm doing my little part in bringing in members. So I have worked with undergraduate students. I've worked with graduate students. I've worked with interns. I've worked with new professionals, and I've worked with midlife professionals. Last year at FAND, I was honored with one of these 8 medallions that was presented during the member showcase. The medallion award is a big deal. And, there on Tuesday afternoon, then there was a session called On the Shoulders of Giants. And there were 3 other speakers on this panel and plus me. So I was the one medallion winner who was selected for this. And during the introduction, I learned that I was the top e-mentor in the academy, meaning I had the most number of mentees. And then, in the spring of this year, I reached out to the academies, the liaison with the e-mentoring program, and asked him if I was still the number 1 mentor, and he told me yes. Now they are transition. Yeah, I know. So no wonder I've been busy. Yeah, thank you. No wonder I've been busy. And actually, so they are transitioning to another similar, but they're changing up the program a little bit. It's got a new name, and it's going to be organized somewhat differently. And I had to reestablish myself. I had to put some things in, and somehow a couple of months ago, I think it was earlier this summer, my profile, like my bio, disappeared, and I don't know what happened to it. So I just kind of plugged something in that I had found on my computer. So I need to go in there and fine tune it. But I really enjoy working with young people to help them achieve an internship, or to help them during their internship year, or to help them after they're out of school and help them with their entrepreneurial career. And sometimes people work with somebody, and then, for a few weeks, she might have something particular she needs help with, and then I hear from her again a year later, and then a year or 2 later I'll hear from her, and inevitably it's like, I don't know if you remember me, but it's like, of course I remember you, because I remember pretty much everybody. But sure. I've had some I've had some real wins, real big wins with, and what I do is I give people advice. I also give them a boost of confidence that they can do it, and every one of us is unique. And I actually, about 2 weeks ago, got a wonderful email from a young woman who I had been working with for years. She coincidentally lives in my community, and actually she did not find me on the Academy website. I like to tell people we were fixed up by a mutual friend. So long story, but so she was a student at an Illinois state college, one of our state colleges or universities, and I was helping her with a variety of just her classes and the application process for the internship, and just giving her all sorts of advice. And she did not get into the internship the first time, and I was devastated, and she, of course, was even more devastated. And then it came out later that there was one negative grade, like her, and the issue was that her overall her grades were decent, but they weren't outstanding. And of course, in our field, they have to be outstanding. But I know her, and she's very clever. She's very she's a go-getter. She's going to be a wonderful dietitian someday, but she didn't get the internship with that. Oh no. And then I texted her a few months ago and just, like, how's it going? And I didn't hear back from her, so I don't know why. So she emailed me, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, and she said, in essence, I got an internship. I am so happy. And then, a paragraph or two about how much I helped her and how she couldn't have done it without me. And so that was
rewarding.
Excuse me?
That's so rewarding.
Yes. And well, the main thing, I was just so relieved because I think about her and I was just worried, like, she doesn't get the internship, then what,
Yeah.
But the most important thing is I was just thrilled that she's in, because once you get that internship, you're off to the races. You're good.
That's very true. Oh, I think that's wonderful. I think that, again, the world revolves around dietitians. You have to be a mentor. You have to do your part in helping the future of our profession.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have more working years in the rearview mirror than I do in the windshield, looking forward. And therefore I've learned a lot. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of wisdom. I have advice. And so, it's an honor and a pleasure to be in a position to be there for other people. And, none of us have done this on our own. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. We all have people who have helped us along the way in small ways, in big ways. And it's important, I believe, to pay it forward.
Absolutely.
The best you can. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is what you're doing with this podcast.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's a good resource. In a small way, I can help and have people reach out and connect in different ways, even if it's over the airways. You never know. There might be that connection in person someday too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I do have to ask, since I was stalking your webpage, you've had lots of media experience, which I very much think is so important for us professionals. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite media experience? Just because I think about the ones that I've had, and I haven't had as many as you, but I've had some goofy ones that I thought were fun, and then I've had some serious ones that were not as fun. What has been your favorite experience in media?
Boy, that's a tough question. Well, I don't know if I have any favorites, but I'm going to tell you some highlights that I will never forget. So one time I was actually in Minneapolis, St. Paul doing an interview for Target. And I was a spokesperson for Target. And I was told not to use my hands when I talk on camera, to hold on to the table.
Okay.
Now, Christine does not talk without her hands because, again, I'm only a half Italian, but I'll tell you, it's the dominant half. So if I'm at a cocktail party or if I'm at any social event and I'm talking to people, if I'm holding a glass of wine or whatever in one hand and I've got food in the other hand or my purse, I've got to put them down if I have something important to say because I need my hands. So that's one thing. I told you about how I spoke with Dr. Robert Atkins, about his diet. And I was young. I was 29, and I disagreed with a point that he was making. And I said so. I disagreed, and he shoved me in the shoulder hard.
Really?
And I did not know what to do. And I just ignored him, and I just kept on talking as if nothing had happened. But in retrospect, I should have stopped what I was saying, looked at him pointedly, and asked him, Dr. Atkins, why did you just shove me or hit me in the shoulder? And then the third career media highlight, of course, was about 22 years ago when I was privileged to be a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
I did. So that's amazing.
And I was a nervous wreck. I had 48 hours notice on this. I did not expect it to happen. The producers kept calling me and asking me questions and wanting me to fax the materials and this and that until like 9:30 the night before, and I finally quit answering the phone. I said, I have got to get to sleep, because and the next day, thank goodness, they sent a limo to take me to the studios, the what do you call it, the Oprah studios, whatever they're called.
Studios.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those days late in winter where we had, here in Chicago, we called it a wintry mix. It's a combination of rain and sleet and snow. Thank goodness the limo drove me there because I never would have gotten there in one piece. I know I would have banged my side view mirror coming out of the garage. And, so I get there. I had a camera with me. They confiscated the camera. We're in the room, they did my hair, they did my makeup. I'm in the green room. I'm eating bananas. I'm dying. I'm just dying. And the topic was hydration. And, and it was an area, something that I done some work on, and immediately, suddenly they called me and said, okay, it was not live. It was, quote, taped live. So they had 3 segments that they were taping that morning. And the segment before me was boring. So they decided to cut it short and then have me come down. So there in the studio audience was my family, my mother, my 2 sisters, and my sister-in-law. And so I'm walking down this hallway with all these pictures along the hallway, and I am praying as hard as I could for a trap door to appear, and I would fall down the trap door, and I would not have to go through with what I was about to go through. I had the same sensation on my wedding day, and we've been married for 40 years. Anyway, so and I had been warned by someone who had been on Oprah a year or 2 beforehand that you do not speak with Oprah ahead of time. The first time you meet her is, when you're up on stage. So I walk in and I did not know if I was going to be in the audience because sometimes she had people, she was interviewing that were, in the front row of the audience. But no, I was on the stage just with her, and I had been told that by the producers that the first question was going to be about the functions of water. What are the functions of water? And I had some notes that I had with me, and so I had all this stuff in my head, but I knew I didn't have to worry about the functions of water, because they told me that it would be on the teleprompter, that I would be looking at the camera.
Oh.
I'd be looking at Oprah, but really looking at the camera, and the question and the answer would be on the teleprompter. So we get the sound check done, we sit down, I'm introduced, and Oprah opens the interview with, what are the functions of water? I look at the teleprompter and it's blank.
No.
And my mind went blank. Not only did I not know the functions of water, but I had nothing to say at that point. I couldn't think of a word to say. I was like, oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself, Christine, you blew it. Not only will you never be on television again, you'll never work again. And so she had it on her side. So she read them off, and then she asked another question, and then we were fine. We were fine. We went to commercial break. I leaned over and I apologized to her. I said, "Oh, Oprah, I am so sorry, but the producer promised me and it wasn't there." And then, of course, everyone knew the functions of water in the body, because the audience had it on. It was on the slide on the screen behind us, unbeknownst to me. So the only person in that studio who did not know the function of water was Christine. So the rest of the interview went fine. It went great. In fact, went great, and we laughed, and everything was good. So then it aired 3 weeks later. And I was watching it in my family room. My brother came over, my mother, I don't know, maybe one of my sisters. And because it was edited, they edited it so seamlessly that even we who knew what had happened and were there, we could not tell. It was just, wow. It was fine. So those are the three interesting things that happened to me.
Interesting. Well, you know what though? They're all different learning experiences too. So I think which you I'm sure can attest to, with media, you never know what's going to happen. So you kind of just have to be ready to rock.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. And with you doing media interviews yourself, you say that as a woman with experience, but yeah, and I think if you want to go into broadcast media, radio, television, even, just other types of things, you have to be nimble. You have to be willing to make judgment calls very quickly. You have to think on your feet, but not to be afraid, because the people who are doing the interviewing, they went into journalism generally because they did not want to major in a science.
Yeah.
So in other words, we are the experts and we know way more than they do.
Absolutely. I like that you need to be nimble. That's like the best way to describe it. You need to be nimble. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yep. Huh. Interesting. Well, those are, and I feel, do you experience a lot of media anymore, or are you kind of more focusing on going to doing corporate wellness and doing more presentation?
I don't do a lot of television, although just this summer and early fall, I have some opportunities that I'm going to be collaborating with a couple of groups through Northern Illinois University. So I am going to be doing some media spokesperson work coming up. I still do a lot of print and online interviews. So that was, and I enjoyed doing that. And I'll tell you though, it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work. And nowadays it's not just doing the interview. Then once it posts or publishes, then there's the social media aspect afterwards. I wind up posting it on my social media channels. And actually, on my website, there's a link to and some pictures of an interview I did with Naperville Magazine for the August issue. It was the back to school issue, and the editor in chief reached out to me to be the expert in the expert advice page. So photographer came to the house and spent the morning, took some pictures, and I had all the sorts of food provided with the new bento box that I had bought. And then prior to that, I did an extensive online interview with a writer. So it wound up being 2 pages of packing school lunch tips that, so yeah. So
you are you're still doing lots of different things.
Oh yeah.
Then. Yes.
Yeah.
Different ways again, just evolving, and the online space is a huge place too. So
it is. Yes.
And you're being nimble with that.
That's right. Let's put it this way. I have many projects that need to be done in my house that I just have not had a chance to do because, I'm being kept busy by a variety of things. Yeah.
Sure. And you have grandbabies that you need to hang out with. So
I do. I have, 5 grandchildren in the area, 3 6-year-olds, just turned 4-year-old as of yesterday, and a 1-year-old. And I am asked to help out on a regular basis, and I try very hard to say yes, because I remember what it was like when my children were young, and it's just hard when you don't have there's nothing like a mother or grandmother to help out because you trust them.
Right. And you needed that when you were in that parenting stage.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
The picture on your website of all the kids is beautiful. Yes.
Thank you. And thank you. And I have a new one. We just took a new picture on Sunday. I have a new picture that I think I'm going to post. Slightly updated, but thank you.
They change so fast. Well, and I'm going to link your website to the show notes. So I hope.
Fantastic.
Yes. I hope people connect with you just because of your expertise and all the things that you've done and are doing. And I have one last question for you, because I think I get a few people that ask me this as well, but do you entertain or use a PR company, or is this mostly very organic for you with the connections that you make for all of your opportunities?
Yeah, it's the latter. No, I have never, I'm too frugal, AKA cheap. No. No, you know what, as I said earlier, my best, public relations is showing up. So showing up means in person, but it also means having an online presence. Although, hiring a PR firm, if it's in your budget and it will help you achieve your goals, it's certainly worth considering. I have never done it, but there are dietitians who have done it and are doing that now, and that may be a good plan for them.
Mm-hmm. So don't rule it out, but know that you can do it without one too.
That is correct.
Yes. Very good. Well, that's always good to know from an expert as yourself. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I have a few other questions to ask you as we end our conversation, but I hope to meet you someday in person. I think that would be lovely. I was just in Chicago this past weekend. So next time I head your direction, I will definitely have to connect with you, and maybe we can meet at some point.
Yeah. So. Or at the Food and Nutrition Conference.
Yes, I will be there. In October. It is October. It's October 3rd. So
it's October.
I'm forgetting what month it is. So maybe we could definitely meet up somewhere along the way as well.
Yeah,
that'd be lovely. All right. So share with me some foods that you enjoy.
This is going to sound crazy coming from a dietitian, but one of my very favorite foods is really good pizza. Sometimes I make my own. Sometimes I buy it, but I love pizza. I love salad. I love red wine. So if I needed a last supper, that could be one of my last suppers. Is some really good thin crust pizza or Lou Malnati's from Chicago, thick crust pizza, pan pizza, with some just good homemade salad. I like butter pecan ice cream. I love a good crisp tart apple at this time of the year. When June comes around, I buy bags and bags full of Bing cherries, and I gorge on those.
You and can we get together and eat those all day? They're my favorite.
Yeah. I like nuts. I love like mixed nuts or peanuts. Gosh, I like whole wheat bread. I love just good bread. I could just keep going. I like oatmeal. I like homemade Chex Mix.
Yes.
Like how much time? It's got to be the homemade kind.
Yes,
it's got to be the homemade kind.
No pre-made purchase stuff.
No, it's not. It's not the same. Yeah. As a matter of fact, my son-in-law has a birthday right around Thanksgiving, and so I'll if I'm hosting or if I'm bringing, I'll bring some Chex Mix, and I'll sneak him like a separate bag for him, like for his birthday. So every time I see him, he thinks I'm making some homemade Chex Mix for him, and I always like either double or triple the nuts.
Yeah.
And another thing I like, and something that I love to cook and I love to eat is I make homemade soup, and I'm really good at soup. I don't like following recipes. I just kind of throw stuff in, and I have a whole soup repertoire. And so I am like chomping at the bit right now with the cool weather that is in the forecast. But I make a Greek avgolemino soup. I make chicken noodle soup. I make split pea. I make lentil soup. I make like a Turkish lentil soup. I make, there's a whole bunch of them, but love soup.
This is your time of year for sure. Chex Mix, apples, soup, all of it.
But no being, pomegranates. I'm a big pomegranate fan too.
And that's coming up too. That time of year is coming up as well.
Yep.
Well, my next question was your favorite beverage. You said red wine. Was there anything else?
I like cold water. I like sparkling water in a glass. I don't like it in a can. I like it in a glass. I just discovered. I mentioned red wine. Beverages. Those are probably my top beverages in terms of enjoyment. Yeah. I mean, and I'm a lifelong dairy milk drinker, skim or the low fat. And I drink milk with every lunch and every dinner, almost always. I love milk.
Yes, I'm with you on the milk as well. And I do think there is something about sparkling water in a glass. I don't love it in the can either. I like to have it in like an actual glass and drink it out of the glass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it just seems fancier. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
What colors do you enjoy?
Well, if you look in my closet, you will see colors as opposed to black or dark or grays. I'm drawn to pinks and blues. So, in terms of colors, like not pale pinks or pale blues, but more like a cranberry or raspberry colors and periwinkle blue. And about 3 years ago, we redecorated redecorated the whole house pretty much. And I've got a gray sofa, like a light gray sofa, and two upholstered reclining chairs. And they're in a almost like a very, very deep magenta, or almost like a pomegranate color, like a dark pink, very bright, very bright, with some blue scattered around. And so it's color. I like color.
You're vibrant, just like your personality. It totally fits. I love it. What kind of scents or smells do you enjoy?
Oh, here comes autumn. I love, the quote, pumpkin spice scent, and then cinnamon. I like mint. So, I mean, I don't really spray anything in my house, but I think I like those
when you're cooking. When you're cooking and eating those foods, those scents that they
yes, yes.
And finally, Christine, what brings you joy in life?
Lots of things. Playing with my grandchildren. I love exercising outside. I call it Mother Nature's gym or God's gym. I like to do a fast walk or a jog or a run around my neighborhood. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles. I do that as, I aim for every day. It doesn't happen every day, but I do it year round. That brings me great joy. And I am very active in my church. I am Roman Catholic, and I am a lector at my church, and I give out Holy Communion. And then thirdly, I work with children in grades 3 through 8 in a child lector ministry, where I train young children to proclaim the scripture readings in our church, and they get to do it about once a month. And this ministry has been in existence. We're in our 25th year now, and I've been with this ministry for all 25 of its years, and I've pretty much grown it. So it gives me a lot of joy when I have worked with a child. And we have, girls and boys. Actually, right now we're pretty heavy on boys. I'm looking for more girls to
recruiting girls.
Because at our training sessions, it gets a little rowdy with all those boys. But when I'm working with someone for some time, and they get up there, and they're dressed up in a suit or in a nice dress outfit of some sort, and everybody's eyes are on them, and they do very well. That brings me great joy as well, because not only, so they're learning, their faith is strengthened. They're learning some interesting and difficult vocab words, but it's giving them public speaking experiences. Our church holds 1,000 people, and although the pews are not that full anymore, but still plenty of people in the pews, and they're learning how to get up and use a microphone and connect with people. So those are 3 things that come to mind.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me, and thank you for sharing all of your experience and your journey so far. And I'm glad that we connected.
I am too, Anne.
I enjoyed this conversation so very much. I think Christine and I could have talked forever. She is such a great dietitian. I think we all really should get to know, reach out to, and talk to, and tap into her resources. I thought of a few questions after our podcast, after our conversation. Hopefully I can someday ask her in person. But if you're looking for some advice or guidance into breaking into media or corporate wellness, reach out to Christine. I think she would be a fantastic resource. I also would love to know any secrets she has to mentoring others on public speaking. I think that's an area we could all use some extra guidance in. If you'd like to connect with Christine, head on over to my show notes, and you can find the link to her website, ChristinePalumbo.com. My website, AnnElizabethRD.com, is where you can read my latest Embrace the Hell Yeah blog post, as well as all my previous podcast show notes and links to things we talked about during all my conversations with these great nutrition experts. My book is also available for purchase on my website, and I hope we can connect more on social media by finding me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest at AnnElizabethRD. Remember to be great always, find the joy in each day, and to start a conversation that truly matters.